FIA explain flurry of track limits penalties at the Austrian GP. The FIA have responded to criticism of the track limits at last weekend's Austrian Grand Prix, in which several drivers were issued penalties throughout the 3 days of on-track action. No fewer than 43 separate track limits violations were recorded by stewards during Sunday's Grand Prix, with Lando Norris, Zhou Guanyu, Pierre Gasly and Sebastian Vettel all hit with 5-second penalties for repeated offenses. In addition, each of those 4 drivers has been given a penalty point on their super license for the usual 12-month period. Before the Grand Prix, Sergio Perez was a high-profile victim of the track limits, with his transgression seeing him drop from 4th to 13th on the grid for Saturday's sprint race. FIA follow-up on track limits approach. However, following criticism from some quarters over the excessive number of recorded violations, an FIA spokesperson emphasized that the monitoring of track limits during the Austrian Grand Prix was consistent with all previous races this year. The spokesperson added that the white line bordering the tarmac is used as the defined limit of the track, and cited Article 33.3 of the sporting regulations, which states that drivers are given 2 strikes for crossing the white line with all 4 wheels, followed by a black and white flag for the 3rd infringement, and referral to the stewards for each subsequent infringement. F1's interpretation of track limits for 2022 are stricter than last year, when different rules and instructions were applied to certain corners. There were a total of 43 abuses of the track limits rules in Sunday's Austrian GP, while 4 drivers were handed 5-second penalties. Lando Norris and Max Verstappen have criticized the rulings, while George Russell believes F1 should return to having one race director. Lando Norris and Max Verstappen have branded the onslaught of track limits penalties at the Austrian GP as stupid and a bit of a joke, while George Russell has reopened F1's race director debate by calling for more consistency. F1 has strict track limits rules for this year, and in Sunday's race there were a total of 43 offenses for crossing the track's white line. Norris, Pierre Gasly, Zhou Guanyu and Sebastian Vettel, meanwhile, all picked up 5-second penalties for repeat abuse. Top 3 Charles Leclerc, Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton were among the many to get warned about track limits, prompting angry responses from the Mercedes driver who said at one stage the rules were BS. Verstappen admitted the penalties were not a good look for the sport. "I think track limits debate this weekend has been a bit of a joke," the world champion and current title leader said. "It's easy to say from the outside, yeah, but you have to just stay within the white lines. It sounds very easy, but it's not, because when you go that quick through a corner and some of them are a bit blind, if you have a bit more understeer, tires are wearing, it's easy to just go over the white line, but do we actually gain time? Maybe yes, maybe not. I don't think we should have this value on 1 millimeter over, that's a penalty or whatever. Then just add a wall or put some gravel back. I think that's great because there is gravel, you punish yourself if you go wide." So these are things where we have to look into how we can make it better, because also for the stewards and just the people involved with checking these track limits, it's almost impossible to check these kind of things, because you almost need one guy on one car the whole race to check the whole lap if he's not going outside of the white line. These kind of things, I think it just doesn't look good for the sport.